We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk, 1180, 1230, KGEO, 1410, KERI. Now we're in Albuquerque, New Mexico on 1000 KKIM. And now we're in the San Francisco, Oakland area on KNUCmedia.com. Okay. I always say .net.
I know,
it's
just like you do names.
My name, Jose Jimenez.
Charles.
Ray Charles, yeah. So what'd you think of Howard Bloom?
Howard's a fun guy.
Yeah.
I'm anxious to see the movie when it comes out.
Yeah, it's going to be a great movie.
You know, the way he's talking, he's going to have a whole series.
Yeah.
Starting in 1915 and then coming all the way up to today.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, isn't it? Well, this is kind of a historic day today because we've got a guest we've had on before, a fun guest, who wrote one of my favorite books. I have to tell you, I do a lot of books on tape because of my driving and everything and because of the show. But I'm a boxing fan of the 60s, Ali, Frazier, those guys. And one of the best books I've ever read is Sound and Fury by our guest, Dave Kindred. Dave, welcome back to Taking Care of Business.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate those sentiments on the book.
Oh.
I had fun doing it. It was a thing that I had to do, and I am proud of it.
Had some nice pictures, too.
Yeah. Yeah, Clay's big on pictures.
Yeah, good.
and writing in crayon is big for him, too.
There's a picture of me as a child in that book, interviewing Ali, or watching him warm up, actually.
Definitely a black and white picture, right?
Yes. Color hadn't been invented back then.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you know, it's funny. I remember most of Ali's early fights before his trial and everything. I was working for a company for about a year and a half, selling magazines door to door, and after school. And the guy that ran the company was a big Ali fan, and he would take us, and the cost was like $5 to see him closed circuit, and you go to a local movie theater and see the fights. That was closed circuit. Was going to a local movie theater for $5 and watching the fight. So I remember seeing his first couple of fights after the Liston fight that way. So that's the old way of doing closed circuit. But we had an anniversary this week, didn't we? A very big anniversary
of the first Clay Liston fight. The only Clay Liston fight. The next one was Ali Liston.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead, Clay. Do you have a question?
No, I didn't have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just interested. He changed his name. Why did he change his name, and what did he become?
Well, he had joined the Nation of Islam and became a Muslim, and he actually had done that before the first Liston fight, but it was announced, or he announced it only after the fight, and then all hell broke loose for like the next 30 years.
You know, seemed like forever. After 30 years is a long time.
Well, it was at the time, and perhaps even now. The Nation of Islam was an exotic kind of alien piece of culture in America. No one understood what the nation was when Ali joined. When Cassius Clay announced it, he'd been an Olympic hero. He'd looked like the middle-class kid from Louisville, Kentucky, and suddenly he says he's no longer Cassius Clay. That's my slave name. I'm abandoning that. I'm now Muhammad Ali, and that struck everyone strange at the time, and I think it still does in a lot of ways.
Well, the thing is, I think it's more acceptable now because you've got more people in the limelight that are, they're a Muslim. But at that time, I mean, he was really, really breaking ground. And the nation was,
today, as you said, there've been a lot of athletes. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bobby Moore became Ahmad Rashad. It's happened a lot in the years since. Certainly more understandable. People have learned what it means, but then it was completely alien. And not only that, but the nation was a scary place at that time. Malcolm X was making noise all over America. People didn't know what to make of that. By any means necessary. Black Panthers were a factor in American political life. So it was a scary thing when the heavyweight champion of the world says, "I'm no longer Cassius Clay, I'm Muhammad Ali," and that happened after the Clay Liston fight, which was 50 years ago yesterday.
Wow.
And from then on, he was Muhammad Ali and became a a different person.
Sure.
Different person, certainly in the national consciousness.
Yeah, definitely. We are having a conversation with Dave Kindred, author of Sound and Fury, the story of Muhammad Ali and Howard Cosell.
You know, Dave, the nation was not only a scary place then, but the nation, as well as the world, is a scary place today. At least this is what I find everywhere I travel, and I'm restricting my travel just to the United States currently because I don't want to get attacked overseas because I'm an American.
I think you're right. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt of that. I mean, when you walk into any airport, go through the TSA exercise there, you're reminded every day, you know, that we are operating in fear. A lot of times, you know, it's not a fear that's justified, but it's a fear that's there, and I'm afraid it's not going to go away, and certainly in my lifetime.
Well, you know, Dave, you got a good point there. I mean, looking at Clay, and obviously this is radio and you can't, but I could see why he would be stopped at, you know, by the TSA. I mean, he's a little shady looking here.
Scary looking.
Yeah, scary looking. I could see why you might be misunderstood as a terrorist, you know. But
I detect a small note of sarcasm there, I think.
Small, but it's there.
So, you know, Dave, did you actually see any of the fights personally that Ali was involved in?
Oh yeah. I was too young to have been at those fights. The first Ali fight I went to was 1970, Jerry Quarry. I then covered the next 21 of his fights.
Wow. You know, I actually met Jerry Quarry at
17 championship fights.
Wow. I met Jerry Quarry. You know, he's a local boy up here in this area in Central California, but I actually met him a couple of years before he died at a grand opening of a client of mine in Westlake, and his hands were absolutely massive. I was really, really surprised. You know, and you could tell he was sitting there, he was punch drunk, you know, and, you know, very, very friendly, very nice to talk with, but you know, you could see the sadness in the poor guy's life.
Yeah, he was no longer there.
No.
He was another one of boxing's victims.
Yeah.
He was a good fighter for a while. You know, not a great fighter, but he was certainly better than most. He was in the top 10. I think he was in the top 10 when Ali came back. They thought they needed a decent opponent to prepare him for Frazier. That was the idea when Ali, after the exile, found a way to fight in Atlanta, Georgia, in 1970. And that was before even the Supreme Court decision that reversed the conviction for evading the draft, or refusing the draft, not evading. He refused the draft. You know, and so, I mean, Corey was a good fighter, and Ali handled him pretty easily. So it was clear that Ali had not lost much as a fighter. Some a little bit. I remember walking away from ringside with Bud Schulberg, the great playwright, did On the Waterfront, was a great boxing fan, a great fan of Ali, and Schulberg said he's lost a step. Well, and he had, because you don't go from age 27 to 31 without losing something. The best years of an athlete's life, Ali lost during that conviction. So when he came back, he was not the same fighter. And it's always been Marty, it's always been my theory that the two greatest heavyweight fighters of all time were Cassius Clay and Muhammad Ali.
Ooh,
so
I like
Cassius
that.
Clay, you couldn't touch him. As Muhammad Ali, you know, he could take all your punches and still beat you.
You know, I like that, Dave. I love that analogy because I grew up on Muhammad Ali, and to me that was the golden age of boxing. There's a great film out called Champions Forever, and it's Ali and Frazier and Norton and Foreman talking about their fights, and I love that film. And you know, you look at that age and you look at Ali, and when he came back, I remember watching the Ali Frazier fight. When he came back, he was a totally different type of fighter. He had reinvented himself because, you know, he was a little bit slower, but he was also a lot bigger than he was, you know, 4 years earlier. And he adjusted himself very, very well. And you're right, he was able to take the punches. Do you think?
Well, and you know, we see the damage that caused now. The same thing that happened to Corey happened to Ali. You know, it's brain damage. I mean, we have a big deal these days about NFL, about football players with concussions. You know, those people at least are playing with helmets on. You know, Muhammad Ali took 1 million shots to the head, you know, forever. You know, he was hit more, and he let people hit him in sparring sessions. He thought it toughened him up. You know, and so we see the results of that now. But what he lost was just the amazing legs that he had as Cassius Clay. I still remember the fight, seeing the fight. I was at a closed circuit fight at Freedom Hall in Louisville, Kentucky, where he fought Cleveland Williams.
Yes.
Cleveland Williams was the top 10 fighter. Cleveland Williams had no chance against Ali. He couldn't even see him. It was like he was surrounded by 10 Alis. Where is he now? And that Ali that could move, float like a butterfly, was the perfect metaphor. That Ali was gone by the time that he got to Frazier. Then he was more your standard fighter, but still a great fighter, still quick with his hands, still with amazing reflexes, where he could just draw his head back from every punch. You couldn't hit him. But eventually he lost that too.
Yeah, exactly.
And he won a lot of fights on reputation. He'd hold on, he would dance away for 2.5 minutes, and in the last 30 seconds of every round, he would fight.
Yeah, exactly.
And steal the round.
When we come back from the break, let's talk a little bit about Sonny Liston. We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180.